Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it Epcot. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
Okay, welcome to another edition of the Retro Disney World Podcast. Welcome to episode 24. We'll be taking you back to the golf resort. I'm your host, Todd McCartney, and with me, as always, Brian P. Miles.
Greetings from the suburban Philadelphia, which brought you the cheesesteak and perfected the soft pretzel.
Wow, if you didn't say anything about pretzels, I was going to edit it.
Perfected it, really?
Yeah.
Yes. Philadelphia soft pretzels. Come on back.
Delicious.
I need to, yeah.
And JT
I have a new food to add to that list too tonight when we get there.
Well, JT and Hal, just introduce yourselves because you just did.
Yes.
Introduce yourselves with foods of your homeland.
There we go.
Oh boy, I don't even know.
Well,
you get rubber tires in Ohio.
That's right. Yeah. Speed ramps.
Speed ramps.
JT Cougar.
JT Cougar.
Hello, and I'm having an Arnold Palmer for tonight.
That's
so.
right. And Hal Bowers from Florida.
Yes, I'm home of the key lime pie.
Yeah, there you go.
Nicely done.
Back to pies.
Up this way, we have things called maple syrup and lobsters. I guess that's one of our things.
Did you ever put maple syrup on lobster, or is that?
No, you wouldn't do that. But there is lobster ice cream.
Oh.
It has a butter flavor with chunks of lobster in it. Yeah.
What about like lobster rolls? Do you like those?
Yeah, oh yeah, lobster rolls are big. Delicious clam strips. So all sorts of good seafood. Anyway, we'll move on from
now that you're hungry.
Yeah. We'll be right back after this.
Clean waters of the North Atlantic produce what may be the world's finest tasting fish. This is why Arthur Treacher's restaurants go out of their way to serve only 100% North Atlantic prime white fillet. No bones about it. And when you combine this fresh, clean taste with Arthur Treacher's famous secret recipe, you'll appreciate the difference real quality can make. It is something else.
Arthur Treacher's, we are something else.
So as always, we go back to comments and corrections from past episodes. And last month, we turned the clocks back to the Carousel of Progress, which I think was a great episode. And we had a lot of listeners write in with some different corrections and comments and things that they had. The first one came from Mike McGinnis, and he says, you noted that the Two Silhouettes song that was from Make My Music used in one scene, but there's another Disney song in the Carousel of Progress we have missed. When Cousin Orville, or Uncle Orville, is cooling off the bathtub, he can be heard humming The World Owes Me a Living, which is from the 1934 Silly Symphony, The Grasshopper and the Ants, which is kind of a neat little thing. So appreciate that, Mike, for writing in on that. And let's see, we also had Diane Jones send us an email, and she had a question on the Carousel Progress. I'm going to defer this one to Hal, but she says, I've heard it said that the robin outside the window in one of the earlier versions was actually the AA bird used in Mary Poppins. Do you think it's true? Hal, did you do some digging on this?
So I did some digging, and I found a really great interview done with Harriet Burns where she talks in detail about actually getting the robins together for Mary Poppins. And there's kind of an interesting story where because the robin was going to appear in close-up, they really wanted to get a actual robin skin to put on top of the audio animatronic instead of making a fake skin, which sounds incredibly creepy.
Rubs the lotion on its skin.
Yeah. But the problem, so they were going to write this, Walt said, write the Smithsonian, get it worked out. And it turns out that robins are actually endangered species. So they had problems with that. They couldn't get that. But she happened to know somebody that was at a different institute in California, and they were able to swap something. I can't remember what it was, whether it was tickets to Disneyland or something, for 2 actual Robin skins, and those are the ones that they went and put on Mary Poppins. So Poppins was shot in 1963. Carousel Progress comes out in 1964. It's possible that they may have reused the mechanisms. I'm trying to get some more information on it. I don't have 100% confirmation. This is a story that has been repeated by several people, including Disney historian Jim Korkis. I do not personally believe that those actual real Robin skins would have ever survived like day in and day out of the attraction. Every day for 2 years, and then sitting there for a long period of time in the wintertime when the World's Fair was down.
Not to mention any type of moisture and humidity.
Yeah,
coming in.
you'd have someone has to go there and moisturize them daily, right?
The weekend at Bernie's of Robins.
Yeah.
Never mind that, my lad. I wish to complain about this parrot what I purchased not half an hour ago from this very boutique.
Oh, yes, the Norwegian blue. What's wrong with it?
I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It's dead. That's what's wrong with it.
No, it's resting. Look.
So if they did use the mechanisms over again, then they surely would have gotten new skins. They're much farther back in the window. You would never need to see that level of detail during the World's Fair, and then later on when I went to Disneyland. I was able to get a clear photograph from Hoot Gibson of the Robins as they appear today in the Carousel of Progress, and they are definitely not the same audio animatronic figures. They're much simpler. So I'm going to continue to do some research and see if I can get a more definitive answer. I'm leaning towards they're not the same right now. But what I want to do is actually compare the functions of the birds on the Carousel of Progress, because there's good film of them from the World's Fair versus the ones in Mary Poppins, and see if they actually move the same way. Do they have the same like up, down, chest, breathe? Like if they have the same functions, then perhaps they did just reuse them again. But it seems to me like the stuff that is built for movies is never built with the durability in mind of a figure that gets used over and over again for an attraction.
So with that said, Hal, you're going to go back to your bunker.
That's right.
Sequester yourself in there.
Bunker down.
Freeze frame all these videos.
Taking his hydrolator down to Sea Base Powers.
Down to Powers Base Alpha. And excellent. So, Diane, we will get back to you if we have any further details on that. Appreciate the question. We also had Reese write in. She's written in a number of times. We love getting her emails.
Hi, Reese.
How's it going, Reese? Great to hear from you. We're going to get to meet you too coming up soon. You're going to be on our
weeks.
Lake and Lagoon tour. Yeah, coming up really soon. So she had a question on the Carousel Progress. She was wondering what we all thought about the families in the Carousel Progress. Is it one family? Is it many? And she says, I suppose it would make more sense if it were many families, realistically speaking, but the dad in each scene looks the same mostly. And she says, I always thought the dad was supposed to resemble Walt Disney in a way because of his voice and the constant pondering of the future. I was really just wondering if there was any story behind it. Thanks again. So what do you think, guys? I mean, the father looks like he was cast from the same mold across it, but I think we've mentioned it may not be the same family or could be related, but the times don't match up either. 20 years later, they're not.
My take on it is that it's supposed to be sort of like the embodiment of the typical family of that time. So you're not actually tracking the same family as 20 years goes on and 20 years goes on and 20 years. It's almost as if you have this made up amalgam of America that you're seeing in each time period. And that's why the kids don't really age. I know there's a couple of oddball things where suddenly in Act 4, especially in Disney World, it's like the son is suddenly like another 10 years older for no apparent reason. Yeah. So there are some inaccuracies, but I think it's supposed to be as if it was the same family, this sort of a made up idealized
type of family, right?
Family, yeah, rather than like the actual same family.
It does throw it off though, because I feel like it being his voice is the same. It's like it lulls you into thinking it's this, and then he says, "Sing our song," because we've been singing it for the past 4 acts.
He sings it in a transition. He's singing it in one act and goes the other. But okay. So here's the last take on this. As we recall, this has been called a stage play, right? And you're seeing 4 theaters. So if this was a stage play, and you add actual actors up there, they would be the same actors portraying different people in different times. So maybe the look and feel of the different people are supposedly like the actors changing scenes and coming out and doing something different. And this would be pretty close to what we saw in the World's Fair, where in 1964 the kids went off, but the mother and father were still there. So, and they just didn't have a part, so to speak, in Act 4.
Yeah.
Kind of like Chuck from Happy Days. How he was in the first couple episodes and then he disappeared.
It's just a move gun.
Richie Cunningham's older brother.
So
that's Wash Day Marvel Girl all over again.
Right. Well, Reese, appreciate you writing in, and we'll see you soon too. All right, the last person to write in here, Justin Hermes, said he wanted to add a little fun fact to our discussion of the Carousel of Progress. You may already know this, but in an early version of the attraction script, the family was called the Peabody family. Or I'm sorry, I'm from up north, so for the rest of you in America, the Peabody family.
You say
Peabody isn't
Peabody? It's
star?
up here.
Yeah.
It's up here. It's Peabody. Yeah. Peabody.
Really?
Yes, not Peabody. It's Peabody.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Just
It's a compound word.
Yeah. In what scenario does the O get pronounced as an I?
In Massachusetts lore, it's just long.
And like
time.
if you have like an ache, do you I need some Advil? My biddy aches.
He's got his biddy guard.
My biddy guard. Every biddy can wear.
Wetsuit by Biddy gloves. All right, go ahead.
Sorry, New England listeners.
That's right. Yeah, you're with me on this one. So in an early version of the attraction script, the family is called the Peabody family from America's most progressive little town, Middleburg, USA. And to make this point, the father states that Middleburg is so up to date, there's even a suffragist movement on Main Street. A reading of this version given the attractions first can be seen on YouTube. So how you found kind of this interesting to them?
There is supposedly a thing that the Carousel of Progress was set in GE's hometown, where their corporate offices are, which I can't remember. It's like outside of Boston somewhere.
In Peabody, Mass.
Slips my mind. There is one cool thing about the Carousel of Progress that I actually was not able to mention last time. About the actual operation of it, which I just found fascinating. Some old time cast members posted some stuff on Facebook. So in the old days at Walt Disney World, there was actually a dead man switch on the chair that sat outside. There's that control console outside of the attraction. So there's a dead man switch on the chair. So if you get up off of the chair, the carousel would come to a complete stop as a safety thing. Which is to me incredibly weird. And then also they used to always staff cast members inside of the Carousel of Progress up until just like the last iteration where they put in television cameras. And allegedly they may be putting cast members in again now sometime soon and have them ride the entire time. So
I'll give my experience from Labor Day weekend. There was a rainstorm on Sunday night, and they, for whatever reason, I mean, obviously, Carousel gets very busy during rainstorms because it's a place to hide out from the rain. But we had a situation where the acts kept repeating because one stupid person got up and walked out in the middle of one, which causes the ride to stop and then repeat whatever scene you're in.
Oh.
And then we had a person do it in the next scene, because they didn't want to sit through the repeated act.
Oh.
So we got to see the acts, I think 3 extra times between 2 different scenes. And so it would make sense to have a cast member in there. Because that's an uncontrollable thing.
Yeah.
If the door opens while the scene is in operation, it automatically causes it to reset, and you have to go through the whole thing again.
Right.
Huh, I didn't know that.
We also did get an email from somebody, and I'm sorry I don't have it in front of us, and they asked if there was ever a death in the Carousel of Progress.
Yes.
And that was actually during the time of America Sings out in California. But yeah, that was an actual thing where a cast member got stuck between the walls as it was moving around, and she was unfortunately killed. So that happened on July 8th of 1974. So same building, but a different attraction.
Oh,
so
okay.
So thanks to everybody writing in for those comments and corrections and questions regarding last month's episode.
I hope I didn't bum you out there.
What's that?
I said I hope I didn't bum anybody out there.
Yeah. And on that note,
kind of a downer.
I'll add one comment. It's not a correction, but something I meant to mention last month. But when I listened back to the episode, I forgot to mention the prominence of the barking dog in the 75 and 81 versions, and even in the Disneyland version. He barks a lot and at a lot of points, and it's very loud in those versions. And now in the 93 version it's a lot less prominent. It's not as prominent in some of the scenes at all. But if you go back and watch some of those other ones, for whatever reason, the dog was very loud and interrupted at a lot of points, like barking over the talking and stuff. So that was something I noticed as we went through the versions that I meant to note for everybody.
Well, there was a gag in the Disneyland and World's Fair version where the dog is. So the position of the dog was actually different. The position of the dog in those two versions, he was actually always looking straight out at the audience and always in the same spot. And I believe when they get to Act 3, the dad actually turns to the dog and says, "Queenie, quit your barking. He could be a good customer of GE." So like supposedly the dog was actually barking at one of the audience members that entire time, and that's what was infuriating it.
Well,
so,
I hope that person bought a new washing machine.
Yeah. So even the dog was breaking the fourth wall.
And if you listen to the very, very, very end of our episode, Queenie barked at you. Did you listen to the very end? How?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
And Hal and JT are going to go back and listen after the music ends. Listen for the.
They don't actually listen to the podcast, Todd.
Oh, that's right. I forgot they don't eat the dog food. We do.
I listened to it.
Then you would have commented.
Sorry, I didn't get to the end.
I don't have to see the movie. I don't have to watch the movie, Dottie. I lived it.
Let's go. Don't you want to see the rest of the movie?
I don't have to see it, Dottie. I lived it.
All right, JT, since you spoke up, it's time for you to open up the listener mailbag.
Oh, this bag, man. Thank you so much to all the writers and the listeners. We appreciate that. First one I have here is from Chad. He says, "Hi, guys. I geek out on the show and recently bought some of your T-shirts for my trip to the world in 2 weeks."
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Chad, that's awesome. And be sure when people ask you, tell them where they can get their own shirts to look cool like you. If you haven't addressed it yet, I am curious about something I think was called the Gold Key Plan that his family experienced sometime around 1985 or 1986. I was only 4 years old, so it's foggy, but my parents often talk about it. We stayed at the Polynesian, and the plan included park entrances, 3 full sit-down meals, drinks, shows, fishing, pretty much everything is what Chad's saying. Can you shed any light on this plan? It doesn't know if it was discontinued. It sounds almost too good to be true. So what do you guys got on that one?
I have visited on that plan. Actually, my grandparents did it first by themselves, and they came back and they said, "Oh my gosh, it was so incredible. We got to bring you guys down there and do it." Essentially what it boiled down to, also too, I don't think it was ever officially called the Gold Key Plan, but I think it was called Gold Key Vacations and World Vacation. But it was the tippy top tier of packages. And essentially what you would get is, you would get your tickets and your hotel and obviously all transportation. However, you got full breakfast, full lunch, full dinner, unlimited boat rentals, everything you can possibly think of were included. And the reason it got that name with the Gold Key is that you had a plastic credit card with your name and a number on it and your signature on the back. It had a magnetic strip, I believe. And this key was your admission. It was everything. Yeah, it did the whole thing. And you would present this thing and had a gold key on it. There were blue backgrounds. I think that was the Grand Floridian. The Polynesian had a I take that back. Contemporary, I believe, was a blue background. Then there was a green background for the Polynesian and a maroon background for the Grand Floridian, and then there was a gold key imprinted on it. And I still have them. I'm gonna have to dig them out. But I remember going out to eat with them, and what's interesting is because gratuity was included. I think the only thing not included was alcoholic beverages. But because gratuity was included, the waiters and waitresses would go out of their way to bring you whatever you wanted. I remember we were somewhere and I wanted a lobster tail.
You need Cherry's Jubilee.
That's bring it on out. It didn't matter what you asked for. They would strive to get it out. They would figure out a way to bring it out to you. You wanted an extra one. You weren't even done with your drink and there was another one on the table. You know, you want another onion soup? Bring it all out. They didn't care if you finished or not. And like I said, full breakfast, full sit-down lunch, full sit-down dinner. Didn't matter where you ate in Walt Disney World you got. It was rather expensive for the time. You know, I'd have to go back and see if I've got any data and any information on how much it was. But it was quite an extravagant way to visit. Did any of you guys ever go on that plan?
No. Fort Wilderness all the way.
You were on the Rusty Key plan, right?
Yeah. We didn't even have a key. Yeah, we stayed in our own camper.
We stayed off-site.
I can't remember if you had to be a Magic Kingdom Club member or not. I don't remember.
I don't think so. I think in the materials that I pulled up and had sent back to this listener, which you were all copied on, I think that it was available to anybody to purchase.
Yeah.
But it you know, today it basically would be like the deluxe, you know, platinum dining plan.
Exactly.
Tacked onto your vacation today is essentially what it is.
Right, exactly. And then they eventually got rid of the gold key for a while. There was the food and fun and all those different things. But it was expensive first time, but you could make it worth it if you did a lot, renting boats and all that stuff, because literally everything was included. Other than
so thanks, Chad, for writing about that.
Thank you much.
Very interesting. Good
what
memory.
else we got, JT?
All right. Well, next up from Drunk at Disney, it's about World Key. World Key was removed from Epcot between March and June of 1999, replaced with telephones to make dining reservations. So I've no experience with World Key. That was kind of like before my time, but
right.
I'm sure you guys are familiar with that.
So that question goes back to last month. I forget who it was who wrote in. So now we've got a definite time frame there of March to June 99 when the World Key was taken out. So
thank you for writing, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Next one's a tweet as well. Kate Antilles at Alderani. She says, were you guys ever really scared of an attraction as a kid that isn't one of the typical spooky attractions? I don't know. I'll go. I don't remember being scared of anything, you know, as a kid at Disney. I don't know. Do you guys have anything that...
We talked a little bit about it off air. I can't say scared. I can say apprehensive. Probably the first time the universe of energy took us through the dinosaur habitat, because, you know, obviously not knowing what was going to happen or when you were going to see a T-Rex, or if Ellen was going to jump out and steal your soul. And the other one that I thought of is the Great Movie Ride when you move into the alien habitat.
Okay.
Although that's not the only scary one. I mean, I think it can also be scary when you're going through the monster movies.
Yeah, that Egyptian scene has got some spooky stuff in it.
Yeah.
Some skeletons.
And the temple in Jungle Cruise.
Oh
yeah.
Temple and Jungle Cruise would be a good candidate for that as well.
Yeah, the whole thing, even in the Jungle Cruise with the squeeze play. I mean, you're trying to make people think that they're going to get squirted by the elephants. So that's the Skyway. In some ways, was somewhat frightening. Especially there were some times when you were sitting there and the cable would kindly catch on the car and you'd sort of lurch forward really hard. And you're like, what the? So that, I'm trying to think. I guess Snow White's Scary Adventures is built in scary, so you can't really count that.
Yeah.
I know what was actually terrifying. The Starjets. Because you're up on that.
They're still terrifying.
Yeah. When you get pull that thing up to the top and it's on that angle. I mean, it feels like a 45-degree angle, and you're going to fall out.
And it feels like you're going like 100 miles an hour.
That is actually
it's an intense ride for what it is. It's just the location.
Yeah. So
I was always blown away. It wasn't necessarily scared, but I had that amazement and wonder because I would see it off in the distance from like the waterways on Seven Seas Lagoon. Bay Lake was Space Mountain. Like I didn't almost like before I was old enough to even ride it. I was like, what is going on in that building? Like it was.
Yeah, I remember being nervous the first time, and I think as a kid, I didn't even want to go on Big Thunder Mountain. That scared me. And typical spooky ride though. I remember asking my mom all about the witch on Snow White. I didn't want to go on that as a kid either. I was like, would she come out and touch you? Did she grab you? So.
All right. Well, thank you for
the apples the entire time.
That's right. I eat this.
Have an apple, dearie.
Kate, we appreciate that tweet. Thank you so much. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for your tweets, for your emails. We appreciate that. If you have a question or anything for us, comments, podcast at retrodisneyworld.com is our email. You can tweet at us. You can Facebook message us. We get your communications any way possible, and we'll answer them the best of our ability. So thanks again.
All right, with that, it's time to move on to this month's Audio Rewind Puzzler. Guys, we got an exceptional amount of entries this month. I don't know if you saw how many came through, but boy, it was quite heavy. A lot of different people coming in. I think you guys all got it listening to it pretty quickly, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. So with that said, let's take a listen to last month's Audio Rewind. For all the people that wrote in, the correct answer was Journey into Imagination. That's where that song is from. And we do have a winner, so congratulations to Suzanne Gill. So you will be getting the brochure and vacation guide package from that David Bell had sent in to us to give away. So that will be coming your way shortly. And, of course, we are going to need a prize for this month's Audio Rewind. And, Brian, it's my understanding you've got something.
Well, continuing with the food theme that we kicked off the show with, I have a copy of the first Walt Disney World cookbook that was put out called Cooking with Mickey Around Our World, and it includes recipes from restaurants and resorts around both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. So if you want to know how to make one of those infamous Monte Cristos, which still line people up around the block in Disneyland, but they don't sell in Disney World anymore, but they did back then. That recipe's in here, along with a lot of other great recipes from former restaurants, retro restaurants, and some of the old standbys that have hung around for all these years. So I have a copy of that that I will send out to the person who can identify this.
Places, everybody. This is a tape. What is that? And 1, 2, 2.
All right, if you think you know the answer to this month's Audio Rewind Puzzler, send your guesses to podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. All entries must be received by November 28th, 2016. Now, all correct entries will be entered into a random drawing to receive this month's prize, which is the cookbook that Brian just described. And on top of that, all entries received, whether they're correct or not, will be entered into our giant prize pot drawing, which is just a mere 2 months away.
Jeez.
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, 2 months. This is our November episode. 1 month away. It's next month. So before we add to the prize pot, why don't we, JT, get out that piece of paper, get out the show notes. Let's run down exactly what is in the prize pot so far before we add yet another item to it.
It's getting crazy. All right, so here we go. Every month is just something else, and I'm really curious. I'm just gonna be blown over when somebody finally gets this thing. Here we go. Orange Bird Yo-Yo, a World of Motion brochure, the Golf Resort Mickey Head logo golf bag tag, very fitting for this month.
Yeah.
Epcot Center salt and pepper shaker set, the Disney glass candy dish, the Tomorrowland Handbook, Disney News from 1985, the Walt Disney World Explorer CD-ROM, the Viewmaster reel or slide. Are they reels or slides?
It's a reel.
It's a wheel. A wheel.
A wheel. the Walt Disney World Tencenial Coin, and finally the Walt Disney World Pocket Protector, which is one of my favorite items in the... I missed one. The expired Discovery Island tickets.
Oh, that's right. That's in there too. Yeah.
Yep.
So bag is overflowing.
It is crazy good, and
It's like
really
a clown
right
car of gift bags.
just in time for Christmas.
We're going to talk about it a little later, but we have 3 special Retro Disney World pins that we have made, and we are going to be adding all 3 to it. So you're going to get an extremely limited edition Lake and Lagoon Tour pin, a Retro WDW website Globe pin, as well as the Lake Buena Vista Village whatchamacallit pin. So these are all extremely limited editions available through our website, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But if you win the giant prize pack, you're going to get all 3 of these as well. So
all your fantasies will come true with these fantasy pins.
That's right.
Wear them with your pocket protector.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Just put it on there. So if you have entered the contest, by just sending in any entry for this month or prior months, you will have an entry in. And in our December episode, we'll pick a random winner and find out where this giant prize box is headed off to. So if you think you know the answers, this month's Audio Rewind, again, emails your answers to podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. All right, well, it's time for this month's main topic. And as we said earlier in the show, and also with the title, we're going to be taking you back to the golf resort. Now, when Walt Disney World opened, as we know, we've always talked about the Polynesian and the Contemporary built in the chest of drawers fashion. But a couple of years later, things started to change, and the resort was starting to grow, and they had ideas for adding additional rooms and whatnot. And then came some oil problems in the Mideast. And we're going to talk about all that, how that came to be. But that really begot what was one of the main reasons why we got the golf resort, amongst other things. So, Brian, you've dug into the history on this episode here, and you've got a lot of different things to go over. Why don't you help us kick this off and take us back to the golf resort?
Well, we'll start off first by thanking George Taylor and his Imagineering site, and Foxy and Passport to Dreams, who did a lot of the legwork in their own articles on the history of the golf resort that we will refer to tonight. So anybody hears us say something they've read there, we're not stealing, we're crediting. So.
That's right.
Sure. Before we add in our own stuff.
We're just the audio version.
Yes. So the resort, when Disney World opened in 1971, they had the Magic Kingdom theme park, and they had the Contemporary and the Polynesian. The campground, which had nothing on it but cleared campsites. There was no service facilities there yet. And 2 golf courses. So they did finish the 2 golf courses in time for opening day. Golf was a passion of the top executives. Dick Nunes, who we refer to often on this podcast, but also Card Walker, who was the CEO, president of Disney, and Don Tatum, I think it was the CEO. They were big golfers. In fact, Foxy wrote that after they did the ribbon cutting for the Magic Kingdom, Dick Nunes, of course, was running the theme park and the resort, and Don Tatum and Card Walker left the ceremony and went and played 18 holes of golf at the Magnolia Course. So that's how much these gents loved golf. So right within 2 months of the resort opening, on November 29th, 1971, they had the inaugural Walt Disney World Open, which was won by Jack Nicklaus and Disney president Card Walker, as he began a tradition that year that he did each year, where he would hit the opening ball to kick off the tournament. So the first golf tournament was less than 2 months after the resort opened.
Who did that?
Card Walker, Card Walker, who was the president of the resort, and then when Don Tatum of the company, then when Don Tatum retired, he became the chairman and CEO.
Just picture him doing it like Happy Gilmore style.
Yeah.
And it had a pretty significant prize too, right? It was like $150,000 for the first place winner.
Jeez.
So at that time, and just so you know where the resort is or was, as you're driving the road between if you pass the Polynesian and you get to the road where there's a T in the road to take a left from the Polynesian back onto, what's that, World Drive, right? Right, Hal? Is that World Drive there?
Yeah.
If you make a right, you would go down to the Grand Floridian. on your left as you're driving to the Grand Floridian would be what is today Shades of Green, and back then was the 2 Disney golf courses. So they built these 2 golf courses and a clubhouse in the center. And the clubhouse was between the 18th holes of both courses. So both courses ended up at the clubhouse. And so they opened up the Polynesian and Contemporary. Those first couple of years that the park was in operation, were running at near full capacity all of the time. They needed additional rooms, and additional capacity. And because of the oil crisis, this 1973 energy crisis, the cheapest and easiest thing to do, rather than build the planned Asian and Venetian resorts that were going to be on and off the monorail loop there around Seven Seas Lagoon and Bay Lake, they came up with the idea of, we can just add hotel rooms and guest facilities onto the clubhouse at the one at the 2 golf courses, and we'll call it the golf resort. So purposely designed as a very hotel, country club atmosphere, very serene, very adult atmosphere. It was also not on the monorail loop, which I'll mention, because of where it is. It's the closest resort to walk to from there is the Polynesian, because of course back then the Grand Floridian didn't exist. When the resort opened in 1973, it was the first Walt Disney World property that had a fully computerized check-in system. So not only did it contain reservation information, as all of the resorts did, but the golf resorts actually had a computerized component to the housekeeping. So as the housekeepers would move and clear a room, it would show up in the system as being available to check in. So if they, cleaned a place at 11 o'clock in the morning and you showed up and wanted your room, they could say, oh yes, that room is ready. So that was a noteworthy thing in 1973. And obviously today that's a common practice, especially in the Disney resorts. All that's computerized and has been for many years. The 1973 rooms were 480 square feet, much larger than the Polynesian and the Contemporary, which I think, I hate to gander, are somewhere between 330 and 380. I forget what that number is, but the golf resort rooms were substantially larger.
So I that's like one of the big things I read when I was doing my research. Like, can one of us give me like a perspective on that? Does that mean like you can fit like an extra table, a couch? Like, what does that entail? I don't know. That's a weird question, I know.
Well, it's essentially an additional maybe 12 by 12 square foot section. So if you think about a 12 by 12 room, tack that on the end of it, it's pretty sizable.
It's a place to put your golf clubs and golf clothes.
Yeah, there was one.
Is there any reason?
It was a slightly upscale, more executive style design too. Because we'll get into the where they ate and stuff shortly. Brian, there was one downside though of there not being built by a chest of drawers, was that there's no way to have a view of Roy's cabin.
That's correct. There wasn't even a roof you could go up on where you could see it from there.
Nothing.
So no Roy's cabin from there then, but hey, it can't be perfect, So one of the other notable things about the location there was the pool. When they added the guest rooms, which was right off of the clubhouse building, the pool had a sprinkling tower, like 3 towers. Today, if they were designing it, say at the Polynesian, you'd have like 3 big tikis that would spurt water. These were just like 3 posts kind of like that were in the pool. And it was the first kind of pool water feature there that was really notable. The other cool thing about the pool was it was the first heated pool on Disney property.
No kidding.
At the golf resort. Yeah. And so the pool location was very similar to the Polynesian. If you're standing in the Polynesian at Ohana's, you look out the windows there, obviously out at Seven Seas Lagoon, but directly below you is the pool area at the Polynesian, the main pool. And on the first floor below you are shops and restaurants. And that was the same setup when they did the pool at the golf resort, that you would step into. On the second floor was their main dining room, the trophy room, which we'll get to. And then on the lower level was the pro shop. And that's what looked out onto the pool. And they did have, when they built it, they added many dining and bar establishments. The main dining room was the trophy room.
Brian, we need to go back real quick to water feature that you mentioned, because
Okay.
you see pictures of that, and for anybody who has ever been to a mall in the 1970s on a hot day and wanted to climb into the fountain, this is the pool for you, because it was basically looked like 3 mozzarella sticks, right? It was one of those. There were these, rectangular boxes, if you will, but they were tall. They would squirt water out of the top, much like a fountain. But
it was almost like an umbrella shower,
right?
The shape of an like a golf umbrella.
Yeah,
the way the water would cascade down.
And these pillars, these square pillars, were probably concrete and then coated in what seems to be those small pebble rocks, almost like those garbage, public garbage.
I know what you mean.
The trash receptacles
it's like
that have that
nature stone flooring. If
yeah.
With that.
Almost like they look like jelly bean size, right? But I mean, you look at these pictures and it's the epitome of 1970s fountain, and I just imagine them in a mall. It just goes so well. But I think a lot of people look at that picture, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. They kind of do look like fried cheese sticks.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. Both the pool and the resort itself, as I was reading and preparing for the episode, and I was familiar with the resort from before, but until we do one of our episodes, a lot of times we don't really focus on it. All I kept thinking as I read about this is how much I would have loved to have stayed there, especially today.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is my speed. I don't need Donald Duck coming up to me at breakfast, although they did have character meals. In fact, I think they had the first character meal on property.
Yeah.
But just the whole vibe of the place was like, I'm looking at it saying, that's where I want to stay. That's where I want to swim. This is the environment I want to be in on vacation.
I just feel like you need to walk around in like brown pants and a plaid jacket with like a turtleneck and just
you can do that, JT. Todd and I have a wardrobe that will fit in.
Like, and if you don't, like it's just like I feel like you need like a drink in your hand everywhere you go at this place.
In an amber glass. It can't be.
Yes, like amber is everywhere.
Yep. Amber smoked glass. Yes.
So Brian, I didn't mean to interrupt there. So you were getting into talking about the trophy room and the other restaurants, right?
Yes. So I know some of you want to contribute here. So there was the trophy room, which is the main dining room, and I know we all have a little bit we want to throw in there about that. There were appropriately named like the Sand Trap Bar, which I think was outside. There were several bars and other quick service restaurants inside. Initially, when it was the golf resort, you were stuck with kind of a quick service, like a coffee shop kind of place, and then the main dining room and a handful of bars and a snack bar outside. When we get to the point where it was converted to the Disney Inn, I'll go over a little bit more of the changes there, but I know Hal's got some details for us on the trophy room and some of the dining options of the day.
Yeah, I took a little, actually, Brian, so the cookbook that you're giving away lists some of the things that you could get in the trophy room.
No way.
Yeah.
So you can make them for yourself at home.
Yeah,
don a plaid jacket and some lime green pants.
So one of the things that the trophy room was famous for was French fried ice cream as a dessert, which predated its appearance within Mexican restaurants as being an item. So apparently this is the same thing if you would have went to like a Chi-Chi's in the 80s. This is the same French fried ice cream, which they sort of popularized as a Mexican item. But this I think was one of the first places in Florida for certain that had it. I looked at the origin of the French fried ice cream because that just blew my mind. And it seems like it may have come out of Philadelphia in 1863. So thanks,
You're
Philadelphia.
welcome.
Man, it just all keeps going back to Philadelphia and food.
It's all about the Philly. And then it sort of, I guess, may have been popular in some Asian restaurants, but Disney went and brought it to the masses. So thanks, Disney.
When I've had it in Asian restaurants, it is usually tempura fried. Whereas the Disney version and the version you get in Mexican restaurants usually has like a cornflake and sugar coating on it. So the Asian version is a little bit different.
Yep. Most of the meals and all of the drinks had outrageous golf ties in for the name. So
very creative drinks too.
Yeah,
it seems very Disney-fied for the time. Like, I don't know, was the Polynesian like that? Like where they made those fancy drinks with the fun names?
Yes.
Or okay,
yeah. They had the Polynesian had a lot of like Don the Beachcomber and Trader Vic's drinks when they first opened up. They were basically lifts from there and like Stephen Crane's restaurants. So one of the drinks was a banana bogey. So a glass of 8 ounces of crushed ice, 2 ounces of light rum, an ounce of creamed banana, a half of a peeled banana sliced, and some raw candy syrup. Let's see. Another one was called the Caddy Cooler.
Ooh.
Which was orange, like many drinks at Disney, was orange juice, pineapple gourd juice, frozen strawberries, and some crushed ice, and just all of the things had ties in with the name. And I even found a room service list.
Yes.
Today, which is fantastic. Let me pull it up because
while he's looking it up, I remember reading about one drink, and I don't remember which article it was, that had an entire frozen apricot.
I was just
in it.
It's called Unplayable Lies. It was champagne doused with Southern Comfort, served over a whole frozen apricot.
Yeah, I mean, I want that. I want to try that.
Exactly. The one that sounds awful, though, is the Double Eagles. It's Kahlua on the bottom and tequila sour floating on top. Kahlua and tequila. I don't know.
See, now I have the Double Eagles is Kahlua Amaretto and brandy.
Oh, yeah, maybe it changed.
So for breakfast, you could get the Southerner, which is 2 eggs, scrambled potatoes, breakfast roll, the Trophy, which is a ham and cheese omelet, the Tournament,
and a young wife.
New York strip steak, 2 eggs, the Continental breakfast, and then the Honeymooners breakfast for 2. But
what's the Honeymooners breakfast?
The Honeymooners breakfast is a strip sirloin steak, scrambled eggs, potatoes, and a breakfast roll, a half a bottle of champagne,
and a do not disturb sign
for the morning.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a day! This seems like the
JT's
man
making
resort.
up the little breakfast tray for him and Kelly already for the morning.
No, like I just look at this like it's like so like it's just like doing all that and I'm like, all right, let's go play those 18 holes, gentlemen. Like it's just so like if this resort existed today, would it be a hit?
Yeah. Now for room service, you could get a Western Open, which is a broiled strip sirloin steak, a Golf Classic, which is a roast beef prime of rib, au jus. A Westchester Classic, which is a roasted, boneless Long Island style duck.
Some duck in my room.
You got that extra square footage.
Bring in the duck press.
A Memphis Classic, which is a baked boneless chicken breast smothered with sauce. A Pensacola Open, which is a red snapper fillet.
And you can order any of these just by emailing us. We'll have it
or
delivered.
the Southern Open, which was a pork tenderloin. But everything had these had names of like allusions to like golf courses or like golfing things.
Just to complete the experience.
Yeah. Golf. Got it. Right. So that people loved golf. And actually I should say, one of the reasons, the other reasons that they did that is, at the time they only had the Magic Kingdom. So having outdoor recreation like golf and boating was actually a huge part of having, giving people a reason to come and stay for multiple days.
Vacation Kingdom.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a resort.
Yep. Yeah. Most resorts today even have golf courses, like tons of them in Hawaii and things. If you go to like an inclusive resort.
Right. It's an important part of it. So this completed it.
So that's my little trip down my culinary contribution to tonight. I was fascinated by that.
Yeah, all the articles mention that the resort and the restaurants there were popular with Disney executives. You were kind of away from vacationing families. The resort didn't attract a lot of families because it was off the monorail line. So if you were staying on Disney property, you wanted to stay at either the Polynesian or the Contemporary. Because you wanted to be on the monorail line with the boat and monorail access to the Magic Kingdom.
One thing that I read in one of the articles was that it was one of the earliest mentions of character dining. Did you guys read that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's they went in the trophy room and around 5 p.m. and I thought that was kind of crazy. Like that was the place that character dining. It didn't seem like a character dining place with your duck and with your Double Eagle drink. I mean, it had it. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that was part and parcel of attempting to attract and encourage families to occupy the resort, because I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit when we go to the. Well, I guess we can talk about it now. The Disney Inn. So what happened was in 1986, the resort went through a transition, and it was one of Michael Eisner's first resort-related projects after taking over as CEO. He rebranded the golf resort as the Disney Inn with a Snow White theme, and one of the all-time great signs in Disney history, which I'll tweet out about 15 times over the next couple weeks when this episode rolls out, because it's so awesome. But you'll be able to see it on our website and in the show notes. The transition happened in '86. They added an additional 150 rooms to the 153 rooms that were originally built. They refurbished and rebranded most of the dining establishments vaguely to Snow White. A few kept their golf branding, but most of them were changed to some kind of, Snow White related theme. Not over the top, but they would just change the name and, the witch's apple or whatever.
Yeah, one funny one was the trophy room changed to the Garden Grill, which is now in the Land Pavilion, right?
Yes. So
what I thought was interesting, I just sent out. We're looking at this picture here that shows them switching it to the Disney Inn, and how you're the graphic design type person. I'm kind of blown away, and I don't know why, but like the golf resort font, it's all lowercase. Like I just think that's kind of, I don't know, is that a normal thing? Is that like any reason for that? Why the golf resort they didn't capitalize golf and resort?
Well, I think that and it was also set in like a Helvetica-like typeface, so I think that was just he's trying to be very modern, like all the resorts were then. It's like there was a thought that they were like at least incredibly contemporary and of the time.
So it had this like golf resort. It was actually like to me too, it's such a lame name. Like you got like the Polynesian, the contemporary, then here's just golf resort. Like it wasn't like, Mickey's whatever, and they just had a logo with a D and a golf club on it. It just seemed like I don't know. It was just, they were deliberately being like lame with the title and the logo.
Well, and again, if we remember kind of what we talked about in some of the early episodes of trying to attract convention business, there was probably a thought that a lot of the convention people would probably put their clubs on an airplane and come down, and doing something incredibly obvious and direct like that would probably be the way to signal to them, like, oh, there's golf there. Oh, there's a golf resort there. Oh, well, I'll bring my clubs and they'll play.
Let's stay at the golf resort.
Yeah.
That's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, the funny thing about that one picture that we're talking about is like that's not the final sign. I think the sign that Brian is talking about.
So the golf resort sign, by the way, we didn't mention it, but the logo is legendary. The phenomenal. D with the putter going through it and the golf ball in the center, which you'll all see. So they temporarily put this Disney Inn sign that JT's referring to, where it just said the Disney Inn. But they eventually went and had a hand-carved sign that had Sleepy, right? Sleepy from the Seven Dwarfs, holding his candle. So also on that 1986 refurbishment, what they did was they updated all the interiors to like a 1980s tan and light green decor. If you watch the Golden Girls, you get a sense of the, or I liken it also to the Star Trek, The Next Generation, the bridge there with those tans and peach tones and everything. That was a lot of the interior of the Golf Inn after the 1986 redo and the transition to the Disney Inn. Despite its proximity to the Magic Kingdom, it was a fairly short walk to the Polynesian by today's standards. If you were walking, say, from the back of Coronado Springs to the front of it, you wouldn't think anything of the distance between the Disney Inn and the Polynesian. But back then, when all the guests at the other hotels could jump on the monorail loop, they still, even with the change, could not get the occupancy up at the Disney Inn to where they wanted it to be, closer to that 100% mark where the Polynesian and the Contemporary were. Complicating matters further for the Disney Inn, they decided to take the pad site down the road from the Polynesian and build the Grand Floridian, which opened in 1988. And that shifted the flagship status. The Contemporary had been the flagship resort of Disney for the first 16 or 17 years, whatever, in operation. And then in 1988, when the Grand Floridian opened, it got the designation as the flagship resort for the property. And within a year and a half, they also opened the Caribbean Beach, Dixie Landings, Port Orleans, Old Key West. There was a building spurt there. They all opened in the following few years, offering rooms substantially less expensive than the Disney Inn, who they priced similar to the Contemporary and Polynesian because of the size of the rooms and the amenities offered there and its proximity to the Magic Kingdom. So they continued to price it at a deluxe price point and just couldn't sell it. So that was the Disney Inn story. Anybody have anything to add to Disney Inn before we move on to its current incarnation?
Oh yeah, there was actually a couple of cool things in the golf pro shop that I found were very interesting. So one of the things that they offered in the early 80s with the advent of video technology was a thing called the Golf Studio. So they would go in and use like a VHS camera and record your golf swing, and then it would be analyzed by one of the pros in the pro shop. And because they couldn't expect you to have a VCR at home to watch this, they would actually cut an audio tape for you to take home with tips on how to improve your swing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then I'm having a very vague recollection of by the mid to late 80s, they installed this system, which I think they featured on like PM Magazine, if to like date myself even more, where they had a like a projection screen that you would stand in front of, and you would hit you would actually take a full swing of your golf club, and the ball would hit the screen, and then a computer would analyze like how hard and what direction you hit it in. And then it would actually like take you to where on the course like your ball would land, and so you could play a game of golf like on this like 10-foot by 10-foot screen.
Yes,
and then they could give you feedback based on that to like help improve your swing and stuff. And that was super cutting edge at the time.
It was. It became very common to find it even on boardwalks and stuff, but in pro shops and places at country clubs, that technology became more commonplace as you got into the 90s. But back then it was like, whoa, look what these people have.
Yeah, that's space age.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk at all about the golf courses themselves? Or
yeah, if you got something to add.
Yeah, so we know. We hear a little bit about like Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus. We discussed Jack Nicklaus a little bit at the beginning of the show. Actually, some of the earlier podcasts, when we found out that Jack Nicklaus was the first guy to like ride a monorail as a passenger, right?
Arnold Palmer was.
Was that Arnold Palmer that did that?
Yeah,
Arnold Palmer.
That's the story I heard.
Yeah, so then he like called his friends and said like, "Hey, we're gonna put on a golf tournament. You want to come?" So he did that, and I guess when they were looking to actually like build the courses there, Jack Nicklaus was a big fan of a designer who designed some other golf courses in Florida, and actually had done like a whole bunch of stuff. All right, so the Magnolia and the Palm golf courses were designed by a guy named Joe Lee, who was super famous and has done a ton of golf courses. And one of the things that he was famous for was like not making a golf course so challenging that it was frustrating, but like finding a balance between fun and putting a little challenge on it. So before Jack Nicklaus actually started designing golf courses, he was a big fan of this guy. And Nicklaus ended up winning the first 3 years of the Open when it was an individual thing. And he was actually the first person to make more than $300,000 a year by like winning the tournaments back to back, which is crazy. I guess $300,000 in today's money would probably be insane, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, inflation calculator.
Yeah.
So it's surrounded by what, the Palm?
Yeah. So there's the Palm and the Magnolia, and I think it's the Magnolia that has the Mickey Mouse shaped sand trap.
Does any of you guys golf? I don't even know.
I do not.
No.
No, I'm just curious, on the quality. I've heard, and I don't know anything about it. They're nice courses.
Yeah, Rob has golfed them, and he thinks they're nice courses. And I have a friend of mine who's not a Disney, he's an old man now, but he went down with a group of his buddies about 10, 12 years ago. They went to Orlando in the winter because the golf was cheap, and they ended up golfing at Disney like 3 days.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you liked golf, I mean, hey, that's like a paradise. You just walk out your room and it's right there.
The Magnolia has been recognized several times by like golfing magazines and things for being an excellent course.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and one little fun fact that I found was so eventually they also are in 71 and 72 they did like a pro-am tournament along with like the along with the big professional one.
Oh,
so
nice.
In 1973, if you attended the Pro-Am, you could have seen celebrities like James Garner, Lawrence Welk, and Joe DiMaggio playing golf.
Joe DiMaggio in Dinky Donuts. So after a while, the Disney Inn disappeared, right? Didn't it? It just didn't hit like you said.
It did. It was like the stepchild resort that they couldn't quite figure out how to make it work. And so the fate of it, they had a lot of, again, a couple of things leading up to its eventual fate and the time frame. So they built all these hotels, the ones I rattled off, plus the All-Stars opened in, I think, 1995. All-Star Music and All-Star Sports were the first two. And they were working on more moderate resorts, and Coronado Springs was in the offing, and so they've got all this building boom going on, building brand new resorts in the Eisner era. And they opened Euro Disney, now Disneyland Paris, with more hotels than they could possibly need, so that it put a lot of financial pressure on the company. The company became a little gun shy about some of its projects, and so all of these things, I think, combined. One other factor, golfing, as more and more golf courses were built in Central Florida, it put pressure on the Disney courses that couldn't keep their rates so high. Profitability was becoming harder. So there were all these problems, not big problems, but little problems with the resort that began to make it more trouble than it was worth because they had so much other stuff going on. So building Animal Kingdom, at that point too, they had announced and started building Animal Kingdom, and they, 3 other parks open. So the United States Department of Defense was looking for a facility to add stateside for its rest and relaxation program for its soldiers. They do have facilities around the world, and including Hawaii, but they did not have a facility for soldiers in the continental United States. So they conducted a survey of their soldiers and asked where they would like to see a resort built stateside. And the overwhelming response was Central Florida and around the Orlando resort area. So in 1994, and to put your time frame on it, Euro Disney opened in 1992. So all the economic pressures, 93, 94, 95, they start to scale everything back. They decide in 1994 to sign a 100-year lease with the Department of Defense to begin operating the facility for soldiers. And 2 years later, in 1996, the Department of Defense purchased the property outright for $43 million. That would be about $66 million in 2015 money. And Disney still owns the land that it sits on, so they didn't buy the land, but they did buy the building and have operated it ever since for their soldiers. From 2002 to 2004, the resort underwent a massive renovation, refurbishment, and expansion. Most of the last vestiges of what Disney did with the golf resort and the Disney Inn were wiped away. The shell is still there, but they added an additional 285 rooms to what at that time was 350 something. So now the resort capacity increased to 586. So they almost doubled the capacity of the resort with the expansion. And during the renovation, they let the military personnel, they were offered accommodations at the Contemporary for Shades of Green rates, which are fantastic at any time. In fact, I remember back at that time, you'd go to the Contemporary, there'd be tons of military families there. So it is a success for the Department of Defense. The occupancy there runs at near 100% all the time for eligible active and retired service members and civilian Department of Defense employees. Doesn't have a strong theme inside other than that of, a country club style resort hotel. And the room rates there, if you are curious, you can't stay there unless you qualify. But the room rates for qualifying people are based on your pay grade. So if you're in the military and you're a high rank and make a lot of money, then you will pay more than an enlisted man who makes less. And it makes it an affordable option for active duty families. Disney has offered discounted park admission to service members for many years. And just a couple notes on the eligibility. It's not open to the general public. Reservations can only be made by current active duty members of the armed forces and the reserve and National Guard members. Those who retired from active duty, reserves, or National Guard with or without pay. The honorably discharged veterans with 100% disability, Medal of Honor recipients, and current and retired civilian employees of the Department of Defense. Now, there has been a Salute to Our Veterans program that started in 2010 that allows all military veterans who have received an honorable discharge, and you have to have your DD-14 form or DD-214 form to verify that, the opportunity to vacation at Shades of Green during the months of January and September, which I guess were the months where they weren't getting full occupancy. And that, to my knowledge, that program is still in effect. So if you find yourself qualifying for any of these and you want a cool place to stay with some Disney history, you may decide to stay at the Shades of Green.
Now, what if you are with a family member and you're not? Can you go just shack up with them?
An eligible service member is allowed to rent up to 3 rooms.
Wow.
So they can bring their family with them. It's very, obviously the thought process behind that number being, Jimmy or Sally's home from overseas and they want to take the kids to Disney World while they're on a vacation from the service. Let's bring both sets of grandparents down so you get 3 rooms. That's the thought process there.
And to all those of you who do qualify and can stay there, and please enjoy it. And as always, thank you for your service too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you may be wondering, what did they do with the golf courses? Since the resort still abuts the 18th hole of the Magnolia and Palm courses. So the golf courses were, as I mentioned, a similar problem. They became less profitable to operate when the 1990s rolled around. So, and the 2000s, the problems only magnified. Disney decided to get itself extracted from the golf business because at one point they had 6 golf courses. So not just the 2 here, but they developed 4 others on the property. Hal, you've got some information on those.
Yes. So you may have remembered somewhere about the 90s, there was suddenly this boom in golf courses where suddenly they were popping up all over the place. So besides the Magnolia and the Palm, there was also the Lake Buena Vista course, which was built along with the golf villas at Lake Buena Vista. That still operates. There was another course called Eagle Pines, which is demolished and is now the Golden Oak super rich fancy subdivision. And then another one called Osprey Ridge, which was absorbed by the Four Seasons Resort and is now the Four Seasons Golf Course.
So you know where they are. They're next to Fort Wilderness. As you're traveling down from Fort Wilderness to the area where Port Orleans, Riverside, and French Quarter and Old Key West are, back there next to Fort Wilderness was the 2 courses that Hal mentioned. And so the one, as he said, was turned into Golden Oak, which is you can get in there for about $2 million, up to $5 or $6 million. You can buy a house there that includes all kinds of perks. They have a website if you want to check it out. It's cool to check it out and decide, hey, if I win the lottery someday, I'm going to buy a house in there.
We should put in an affiliate link just in case someone buys one.
and then on the other side of the golf course that survived, they built the Four Seasons Hotel. So that's over there. And so what they did with those courses, those remaining courses, was in 2011, they signed an agreement with Arnold Palmer Golf Incorporated or something like that to take over operation of the courses. So same deal. Disney, I think, still owns the land, but the owner operator of them is this Arnold Palmer operation. I had my notes, but I don't have them in front of me. I think it was a 20-year agreement, maybe a little longer, but I think it was a 20-year agreement.
That's right. It's 20 years.
Yeah. So those are until 2031. Those are to be run by this Arnold Palmer Golf Incorporated. So Disney got out of that business, and that's who runs it now.
Yeah, they're just, as I was talking about, there was just Disney was not the only one that went crazy building golf courses. There suddenly became a huge glut of golf courses in Central Florida and all throughout Florida. So there was just an intense amount of competition suddenly.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, they were cheap relatively to build because you're not putting up a lot of support structures.
Right.
No, you're doing some earthwork, and the planners don't mind it because you're putting up beautiful, hundreds of acres of greenery around, Yeah. This is, oh, sure, build as many golf courses as you want.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna need to do something with your land, it's probably a relatively simple thing to do. The golf courses did get a couple of renovations. I think in the mid '90s they were closed briefly, and they got a refresh. And then I think a couple of them got like a larger refresh where they actually reworked some of the holes in the 2000s.
So, Hal, I have one other question if you know the answer. When was the last Walt Disney World Golf Open?
Oh, the last one was in 2012.
Wow.
Oh.
So there you go. So it's not too long ago.
It went for a while. It went through a couple of different names. It had a couple of different sponsors. Oldsmobile sponsored it for a while.
Yeah, that's the one I remember. You got on the monorail between the Poly and the Grand Flu, and they would talk about it as you went by.
Yeah. The last one was the Children's Miracle Television Network. And then the thing that was always kind of interesting about, I guess, that tournament was it was the last one in the fall. So it was kind of your one chance to either try to put your money over the top or to qualify to get into the next year's round of PGA tournaments. But as time went on into the 90s and the 2000s, it's like they started doing more tournaments at Bay Hill, and I think they ended up shifting over like the official PGA tournaments to the Bay Hill Club. So then Disney lost that.
Interesting.
So that is our visit to the golf resort.
Have you guys ever been there? Golf resort or Disney Inn or Shades of Green?
I vaguely remember going over there for something. Because
with your gold key, you probably went in and gave you free.
I remember 15 fried ice creams.
Yeah.
I remember going, it could have been the trophy room. I vaguely remember going in and having dinner in this room. And who knows, it could have been the restaurant over at Lake Buena Vista and some of the villas over there, but it could have been the golf resort too. I remember this very wooden room, and I know that the trophy room had a lot of wooden beams in it, so I would have been 86 that I would have been there.
Yeah, my favorite thing about it is the fact that we've seen this thing over and over again where they change out the sign. We talked about the fact that they put that really cool sign up that had Sleepy on it, and when they put up the Shades of Green sign, they literally took the outline shape of the Sleepy sign and like shoved the Shades of Green logo into that. It's like, my gosh, you could even spend the extra however much money to just like make a unique, distinct sign for it. It's like, just cover up the old one.
Sleepy's just thrown on the ground.
Yeah.
Now, we talked earlier before the show. You guys kind of said it's somewhat gated, but not really. Kind of like, can I go there and just eat dinner now?
Listen, I think they would let you in. Is my guess. My guess is they would let you in.
You seem like a clean-cut young man. I don't see what
I feel like I have a decent
got a military air about you.
Yeah,
but no, I think if you pulled up and said I'm coming to have dinner at whatever it is, Giordano's or whatever the place is called in there, I think they'd say okay.
I mean, I did see someone. I think it was probably about 2 or 3 years ago. They actually someone asked that same question: "Can I get into the resort? Can I do something?" And they called the resort, and the person at the time said, like, you are welcome to come in and use the dining facilities. It's like you would have to have a military ID to like shop at the gift shop, because it's a
tax-free.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, it's like shopping on a base.
Yeah, it's an exchange.
It's like exactly. It's a PBX exchange thing. So so you couldn't do that, and I don't think you could use the transportation there. So if you can walk over. So I think while we're at Destination D, we should probably try to go.
Like I said, we're all going to have cars, so we could just pile in one day and go over.
Ram the gate. That's
no, just go over and say we're here to have lunch or here to
That's very cool, though. It's one of those things, like I was just saying. It's very I feel like a lot of people don't know what it is, even like, or it existed, the golf resort, but it was like
show on it.
Yeah, it's one of the originals. It's very cool.
I did see some like older trip reports or just places where people had talked about their experiences going there, and the thing that they liked about it was more laid back. It wasn't as busy. You had, a lot of the same amenities that you might have at the Contemporary or the Polynesian, but it was just a more relaxed atmosphere, just big trees and just more chill.
All right, well, that wraps up our trip back to the golf resort. And with that and talking about trip, guys, we are going to be there in just about 25 days or so. We're going to be showing.
Too excited to sleep.
Brian's going to be just weary-eyed the whole time. So for those of you who don't know, or if you've been listening, the entire Retro Disney World crew will be down there for Destination D. Some of us are arriving around the 16th and staying to approximately the 20th. Definitely follow our Twitter and Facebook feeds. We'll probably be pushing out some things that, hey, we're over here tonight. Join us for a drink if you'd like to. Meet up with us. And for those of on the Lake and Lagoon tour, we'll see you pretty soon on that. So if you're down there, follow us on Twitter. Hopefully you'll be able to meet up with us at some point. So
we would love to meet you.
Yeah, it'd be great to meet our listeners. So with that said, guys, every month we always have a new T-shirt design, but this month we're going to be taking a break from that because how you designed a incredible pin. We've got so let's talk about it. So Hal has been designing, as you know, the different T-shirts and stuff, and we wanted to take a break from that, and we went ahead and took some of his designs, as well as the Retro Disney World logo, our new Retro WDW logo, I should say, and sent that off to a facility and had some pins made. So we have we mentioned it in the prize pot. There's 3 pins that we have available, and the first one is very, very limited edition. In fact, we really can't talk about it until after the Lake and Lagoon tour, but we've sent some pictures out, but it won't be available for sale unless we have any left over. But the other 2, the Retro WDW Globe logo, as well as a Lake Buena Vista whatchamacallit. How you did the work for that, and that came out fantastic. I mean, the pin looks great. The angle you've captured the whatchamacallit absolutely perfectly.
Thank you. Yeah, that was actually a lot of fun to do, and it was interesting being able to work using the cloisonne pins. And they did a great job on the manufacturing side. It's like I couldn't be more happy with the way that those came out.
Yep, they came out great. So these are now available. If you go to RetroWDW/pins, you'll be taken to our purchasing website where you can purchase these pins. They are $7 each, or any 2 for $6. And even if you order 4, they're still $6 each. So anything over 2 that you order, or anything over 1 is $6 each, and flat rate shipping on no matter how many you purchase. So head on over that, check them out. There's a limited edition in all of them. And also, if you win some prizes from us, we'll be throwing in a pin now and then as well in your prize packs.
I do think it probably bears mentioning every once in a while, and we try to do it, that we're not buying new Maseratis with the profits from this stuff, that it literally pays for our ability to have like microphones and internet access and stuff to actually bring you this show.
Correct. And we do this in lieu of people donating $1 every month or something like that. We'd rather bring you something that's physical and tangible, and that you'll enjoy as well. So if you don't buy anything, we'll still be here and doing the show for you. So that's right.
No pressure.
But for those of you that purchased T-shirts in the past and they're going to buy the pins, thank you very much. We do appreciate it, and we're all ready to ship them out. So when you're ready, go ahead and place your order. We've already shipped a couple of them already, so we're moving along.
They're cool. I like if you're a pin collector, they are spot on with the Disney type pins. I mean, It's not like we hot glued a sticker or something to a safety pin. I mean, these are legit.
That's right.
I could technically go to Disney Springs if they still. Do they still have a pin store?
Oh yeah,
no.
Yeah, they do.
It's under the captain's tower.
Stick our pin right on the little holder and put it on the rack. You wouldn't be able to tell it's theirs or ours. They're legit.
Now we did find something out that these are under the category of what are called fantasy pins. So technically, you are not allowed to trade them with a cast member because they are not official sanctioned Walt Disney World pins. But I'm sure you trade them with each other. That's not a problem.
Or just wear them and look cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a very few
yeah.
of these. People are going to ask, where'd you get that? And
If you're a fan of the show, I'd say it's a cool little addition to your lanyard if you got a pin collection. I want some for myself, which I will buy. So
absolutely. All right. Well, with that said, guys, I think it's about time we wrap it up and moving on and close out the show for this month. All right. So, and Brian, you've got a topic that's near and dear to your heart. We're going to kind of break a little bit of tradition here. But what do we have planned for next month?
Well, we're going to push aside our retro rules, only looking back 25 years or older, because it is our 25th episode next month, and we all agreed that it would be a lovely idea to revisit Walt Disney World's glorious 25th anniversary celebration. Between the TV specials and all of the in-park events, that great big beautiful birthday cake castle, and the road show that went around from town to town, there's so much to talk about. All of us were there for it, so we've all got firsthand memories to share, and it was like a big event in that 1996-97 time frame. So we're going to hop back to Disney's 25th anniversary in celebration of our 25th episode.
Excellent.
Very cool.
All right. And with that, everybody, thanks as always for listening. Give us a shout out on review on iTunes if possible. If you have any questions, comments, or anything about the show, please email us at podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. We love hearing from you. Love getting the letters. And don't forget to send in your entries for the Audio Rewind. This is the last month to enter before we pull the winner in December. So with that, Brian, take us out.
Follow Todd McCartney and Retro Disney World on Twitter and Instagram at RetroWDW, on Facebook at Retro Disney World. For all things Retro Disney World, including exclusive merchandise, visit us on the web at RetroWDW.com. On Twitter, you can find our producer, Jason Bartell from Deepwater Studios, at JasonDWS, our announcer, Andre Gardner, at Andre Gardner, and follow our hosts, Hal Bowers, at GoAwayGreen, for JT Kuzier, at LS1JT, and you can find me on Twitter and Facebook, at Brian P. Miles.